Hey guys, I got something a little different for y'all. I'm gonna do a book review on a book that I read last year, called The End of Reason. And the reason I'm doing this book review is because I read a lot of books. I probably have close to 100 books on my Audible account, and I don't even know how many on my shelf. And I love to read and read and read. Wake up and read for about an hour and a half in the morning, and then whenever I can find time to read, I try to read. So this was, out of all the books I read last year in 2015, The End of Reason was a book that I read or listened to on my Audible account well over a dozen times, and I consider it to be probably one of the best books I've ever read. And it's by Ravi Zacharias. So I'll tell you a little bit about the book. It was written in response to a gentleman named Sam Harris, who wrote the book, or a book called A Letter to a Christian Nation. And so the book was in a response to Sam Harris's short book called A Letter to a Christian Nation. And just a little bit about Sam Harris. He wrote a number one bestseller back in 2004, I believe, called The End of Faith, which was on top of the bestsellers list for 33 weeks in a row, I believe. Sam Harris is a very prolific writer. Writes a lot for, I think, the Huffington Post, New York Times, or has written articles in those times. So Ravi took the time to write this book, The End of Reason, in response to him, which, again, in my opinion, is one of the best books ever written, at least that I've read. And so Sam Harris is also considered to be one of the four horsemen with the late Christopher Hitchens, the philosopher Daniel Dennett, and the pseudo-biologist Richard Dawkins. Um, so that's really it about Sam Harris. What I have is I'll play some of the clips from the book that I've thought really are just so well written, and I hope you enjoy it and listen to it.
A university student arrives home and informs his parents that, after reading a popular atheist's book, he has renounced his family's faith. His mother, particularly, is shattered by the news. The father struggles to engage his son in dialogue, but to no avail. The deepening grief causes them to distance themselves from their son. When the game of silence does not work, the mother is plunged further into depression and despair. The grandparents become involved, watching in anguish as beliefs that have been held dear in the family for generations crumble. Before long, this family that was once close and peaceable is now broken and hostile. Abusive words between mother and son are exchanged with increasing frequency and intensity, and the siblings blame their brother's new strident atheism for the rift in the family. After one long night of arguing with her son, pleading unsuccessfully with him to reconsider his position, the mother takes an overdose of prescription medication and ends her life, unable to accept what she interprets to be the destruction of her family. Although this particular scenario is imaginary, I suspect that in some measure similar scenes have played out more than a few times since the publication of Sam Harris's best-selling Letter to a Christian Nation. It is quite possible that many a young man or woman stirred by the passion and intent of Harris's book has repudiated the values intrinsically bound up in the belief in God held dear by parents and ancestors long before them. In 2005, Harris, a doctoral student at Stanford, published the first of two books that are absolutely and unabashedly hostile to all religions, but particularly to the Christian faith. It is time for us as Americans, Harris states in these books, to outgrow our religious beliefs. His unvarnished hatred for things religious is embellished with strong language and illustrations designed to convince the world that Christians in particular really are buffoons or imbeciles for believing in God. I have always found it fascinating how relativists who say they love the idea of tolerance ultimately reveal themselves to be among the most bigoted. So Harris writes to America, but in fact to the whole world, telling us that science has the answers to our questions about life and that religion is the bane of existence. But why do I begin to address a work as serious-minded as that of Harris with an imaginary scene like the one above? Because realities that are far from imaginary are enveloped in this story, and I wonder what Harris would say to those possibilities. He may argue that the grief his book may cause families such as this one is justified, and even necessary sometimes, if the young student in the story and others like him are going to stop believing and living a lie. Does this sound familiar? He may well justify any amount of grief to any number of people because of an insistence that the value of his truth is greater than the destruction of a family. But to do so raises a huge question, doesn't it? If in the microcosm of this one little episode, Harris were to justify the devastation he has caused for the sake of what he sees as the truth, why does he deny God the same justification for allowing suffering in all of the intricacies and possibilities of a lifetime? Harris's biggest complaint against God is that so much suffering is experienced by humanity in the name of God's sovereignty and goodness. Yet in his own little world he would, I suspect, turn a blind eye to any incidental pain in order to freely proclaim liberation from falsehood. In a recent interview, Bethany Saltman suggested that Harris may have gone too far in some of the things he has said. But he responded by saying that if he had a magic wand with which to eradicate either religion or rape, he would choose to eradicate religion. This strains credulity.
So I know that first quote was a little bit long from the book, but I felt like it was classic Ravi Zacharias, just the perfect story to fit the perfect situation. On top of that, this book is filled with just brilliant analogies like that, and then funny ones as well, which I will play here for you. When I first heard this, I laughed for I don't even remember how long, but so yeah, I'll play that and let me know.
The End of Reason. Dear fellow American, two Australian sailors staggered out of a London pub into a dense fog and looked around for help. As they steadied themselves, they saw a man coming into the pub but evidently missed the military medals flashing on his dress uniform. One sailor blurted out, "Say, bloke, do you know where we are?" The officer, thoroughly offended, snarled in response, "Do you men know who I am?" The sailors looked at each other, and one said to the other, "We're really in a mess now. We don't know where we are, and he don't know who he is."
So yeah, that's one of the funny quotes in the book, and then he draws it in with explaining how after Sam Harris's book, we not only don't know who we are, but we also don't know where we are in this world or in the grand scheme of things. Again, just a beautiful analogy with just such profound meaning. So I've got two more quotes that I'll play from the book. Both of them are a little bit shorter than the first one, but I'm trying to just pick the best few
In his
that
search
just
for
fit the.
extraterrestrial intelligence, Carl Sagan said all we need is one message with information in it from outer space, and we'd be able to recognize the presence of intelligence. We won't even need to translate the message, he said. We'll just recognize the presence of intelligence. When it suits the atheist, only intelligence can explain intelligibility. But when it is discomforting, primordial, self-existent soup will do. They cannot hide their prejudices.
Again, just a wonderful draw from someone's quote, someone like Carl Sagan, who's put on such a high pedestal by so many atheists, and yet he takes that same quote and just, explains how much they have to strain credulity when they can say, if we see aliens, we know they're intelligent life, that's how intelligent life got on this earth, but if we don't see aliens, well, then primordial soup will do. And again, all these are just responses to the book, or short parts in the book, A Letter to a Christian Nation by Sam Harris. So I'm going to do one last quote, and now I can show you where you can find the book and how much it is, and how you can get it. And
Now let me ask you this.
here's the last
Did
one.
you see any rioting after the release of the movie based on Nikos Kazantzakis?
And this is talking about rioting from Christians at certain events.
On Nikos Kazantzakis' novel The Last Temptation of Christ? Did you see any rioting after the exhibit of Andres Serrano's artwork, a photograph of a crucifix immersed in urine? Did you see any movie theaters burned down after the sophomoric The Da Vinci Code was shown? Or after the most recent farce in March 2007, when the Discovery Channel aired a documentary claiming that the bones of Jesus were found in a Jerusalem tomb in 1980? I might add that if all of these stories were true, You would have to believe in the supernatural to have Mary Magdalene in so many places at the same time. I wonder what would happen if a movie that exposed homosexual practices using medical research to evaluate the practice was shown in our theatres. I wonder what would happen if the teaching of atheism were barred from our university campuses. We might see riots until now unparalleled.
Again, just a beautiful quote, and just loves how he pulls it all together. The entire book is filled with that. I think that's why I love this book so much, is because you can read, I've read it so many times, and each time I'm just blown away by the analogies, and I catch stuff that I didn't caught before, and it's just a wonderfully written book. Now, if you want to get it, you can certainly get it off Amazon Prime for $12.36, or you can get it used for $6, and that's probably $3, and then $4 for shipping. Yeah, plus $3.99 for shipping, so you're looking at $10 for a used book. But you can read the um, reviews on the book, and a lot of people say the same thing that I have. Um, If you cannot afford this book and you really would like this book, please contact me. I can get one to you. If you have an atheist friend, it's a very short book, a great book to hand someone, a book that's brought me to tears many times. And I would honestly recommend this for anyone at any point in life. And if you also you can get it from Zondervan production or Zondervan. Not a huge fan of Zondervan, but they did publish a great book here with The End of Reason, and I just love it. And if there's any more questions you have on this book, feel free to contact me via text message, or my phone numbers on some of my other videos. You can find it, look for it, or just write me a private message. Anyways, if you do get this book, you will enjoy it. If you don't, send it to me. I'll buy it from you. And I love it. Please get it and read it.